Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, this morning on Truth News Headlines, I put an article on there that I know is fake news. And I put a little note at the top, and I said that you'd be explaining this article later. Now, from time to time, I will put articles that we know are propaganda pieces so that it helps you learn how to be more discerning in the way that you read news. And this article, they want to continue this narrative that the Russians were involved in this election rigging, this whole planet of what the Russians have done to us, right? Now, I would like you to please explain why this article, which is linked in the description box below, is bogus and what is the real story.
Well, Betsy, when I recommended it to you, I meant it as like a cartoon because it's a joke, because he's a joke. We predicted some time ago that he would dip so low, or that if he ever dipped so low, Mr. Mueller in his investigation, that his belly would go into a wagon rut, because that's about as low as you get. He would accuse Guccifer 2.0 of being a Russian. And now he has done that, but he's not only accused, he says he has proof. Oh my goodness. I can't begin to tell you how absurd that is, but how pathetic it shows him to be. Now, we've already seen the pathetic low-hanging fruit with George Papadopoulos tricking him up because he believed that Olga was Putin's daughter that he was having sex with, and he was going to get the Hillary emails. That story has come so unwound now that no one is even hardly focused on that. We focused on it, and now all of the characters we pointed out are coming out as being corrupt, paid off, and usually Hillary connected. So the whole Papadopoulos thing, complete joke. But we need to show Mueller for who he is. Mueller is a continuation of what Comey did when he was told by Podesta and Hillary to, hey, come on over here. We have to show you something. That was in December 15th, 2015. They had already been breached in the summer of 2015, and someone had pointed this out to them. And then John Podesta and Hillary, in their WikiLeaks communications, point out that they had two major breaches. Now, when we look at that, we've again and again, and we're the only people saying this because we believe that we should stop ignoring the WikiLeaks content, because that is one of the clearest trails of evil that anyone can follow. So as we pointed out, when the Democratic National Committee, Podesta and Hillary, called it, which would include Debbie Wasserman-Schultz and Donna Brazile, though she wants to get out of it, that's a lie, which would include Sidney Blumenthal, it would include Alexandra Chalupa, and the other members of the Democratic National Committee. They became alerted to the fact that they had a breach, and they started communicating it. Then they called in the FBI. And the FBI said, well, oh my, this is bad. So they called in the favorite cyber warfare true Russian spy, whose name is Dmitry Alperovitch, which we have written on again and again. We were the first ones to actually point out who the real DNC hackers were. There was no hacking ever. What was left in the DNC computer was put there by Dmitry Alperovitch and his company, CrowdStrike.
Which has financial roots where?
$100 million by Eric Schmidt bought into that company because that was the only company that Obama used for 5 years to do all of its cyber warfare, whether it be private, public, governmental, even military. You know, Dmitry Alperovitch, whose father is a Russian spy, who controls the cryptology keys for America, again, both public, private, corporate, military, doesn't matter. These two Russian spies, and all you have to do is look them up, go to our intelligence reports, we give you all the indictable evidence. That's who was called in. So he came in, and he said he put his, he actually said he did it over the phone. I heard him in 3 different interviews give 3 different versions of this. So sorry if some of the stories sound a little bit mixed, but that's who he is. He's a very mixed character. He's been proven now to be a complete fraud, and everything that he has ever revealed was wrong. Let's remember who he is. He was arrested by the FBI after he and his father came into this country. His father became a cryptologist. He became a hacker who was arrested by the FBI, used as an asset for years, then placed in the pre-McAfee virus company called, what was it called? American Trust, I believe it was called. AT something or another. Anyway, before McAfee, Dmitry Alperovitch was working for the FBI, and his specialty, his specialty is to leave the footprints of Russians, Chinese, or North Koreans. And in every case, that's what he always comes up with. He'll look at a system, like when he first started working for McAfee, he found supposedly the largest Chinese hacking ever done. No, later found out he placed that there. The Ukrainian artillery scam, where he said it was the Russians hacking, false. Now, how do we know this? He was leaving the footprints that were the old set, not 1.0, not even 2.0. We're up to like 4.0 of this type of footprints we know from Vault 7. Leaving footprint attributes. Everyone does that. Children do that. High schoolers do that. So he comes in, he leaves the footprints, he attributes it to somebody, and then Obama would take sanctions against them based upon the report of one person. Same thing happened here. When they called Comey came in and said, oh, my, this is terrible. Okay, let's get CrowdStrike in here. He came in and he looked and he said, well, here's the deal. You have had a breach. And he knew exactly when the breaches were because they left the computers at such high speeds that they left a track. Now, this was later also discovered in the documents that CrowdStrike made available to the public, and a variety of people, one of them named Forensicator and his whole group of specialist hackers, as well as dozens of other hacker groups, looked at this information and said it is impossible, 100% impossible, that it was a hack. And that is imprinted right into the code. So it was a breach. Now that means that it either left on a jump drive or some type of memory device, which means someone had access to the computer to get it out. Well, we actually know the very dates these happened, and we know that the first leak came from Seth Rich. How do we know that? Because Julian Assange has so much as said so. Kim.com has said so. And then a variety, he had told his parents and other things, parents who have now tell a different story. But anyway, there was a second breach. And the first breach, the reason, I'll tell you why in a second, but the second breach was literally handed to Craig Murray. Legally obtained from a disgusted DNC staffer. This is on record. How can anybody even be questioning this? Only a Mueller, who is a joke, thinks that we didn't notice that those 13 Russians he indicted, none of them worked in 2016 at the IRA, the Putin hacking factory. They had worked there from 2010 up through 2014. And Mueller did nothing more than take a New York Times article, which was an expose on Putin's hacking group, and doctor it up and put it in his report. He didn't even do any investigation. He can't indict those people. They don't even work there anymore, and they're Russians, and they will never be indictable. So now he is indicted, Guccifer 2.0, said he's a Russian, said he knows exactly where the IP address goes to on a street. That's stupid.
But he's probably in the middle of Russia, so once again,
Of course.
We have somebody that they can't actually bring here and do anything with. Now, you know what? I was thinking that maybe Mueller doesn't know this because he doesn't read Truth News headlines every day.
Mueller is an idiot.
Well, that too.
He expects us to believe Tower 7 fell,
Oh, that's right.
though no plane hit it, and the fires were already
Right,
out. Look at the
right.
pictures. There was nothing but smoke.
Right.
There was no fires left.
How can you believe a man who would say that when all of us have seen the free fall of Tower 7?
Imagine the person in charge of 911 who couldn't find anybody guilty.
Oh, my
Except
goodness.
some imaginary people who didn't even exist, who I think of the perpetrators, 5 or 6 of them, after the report came up and were on BBC and says, no, that's my name. There's my picture. That's me. Those are the pictures of me that they showed of me in Afghanistan, and I'm right here. I had nothing to do with it.
Well, his name is so fitting now. He's the mule. He's a mule for all these corrupt, elite, corruptocrats, swamp creatures, isn't he?
They put the crimes on his back, and as a mule, he keeps moving so that they never get caught. Because if he stands still, now, Betsy, I'm going to get really excited. Why would I be so excited? Not only because I'm patting myself on the back, because I said this was my personal opinion.
Maybe because Trump is going to start going on the offense on Mueller.
True.
But that's not what you're thinking.
But now we have a crime.
Oh, what?
Mueller has committed the biggest crime of his investigation. And here's why. Well, first off, I'm going to have to finish the long pre-story before I can tell you the bottom line. But in a minute, folks, I'm going to tell you how we can take Mueller down. And it only arose in my mind a few minutes ago when I was looking at the articles and realizing that what he has done, he again thinks the mainstream media can cover him like in the old days, like when 9/11 happened and we believed it all. No one actually ever really looked at those pictures, and they all had subliminal programming in them. Remember, the first strike was given out by FEMA. There's only one version of it. Anyway, Mueller is covering up. But what is he covering up? He's not only covering up the real Russian collusion with Hillary, which we've talked about so many times, it's so sad. You know, the tech city that she built, and now our technology has to be advanced. Trump said the other day he has to now enter into a race, an arms race again, because Hillary and Obama gave the technology to Russia that made us have to spend, as he just pointed out, hundreds of billions of dollars. Because why? They sold our technology out to China with the IP, with all the intellectual property, and with the military to Putin himself, and the uranium to Putin himself. So Trump is now fighting two fronts, which is China and Russia. But Russia doesn't even want to be our enemy. But of course, they're a mafia, and they're an oligarchy, and they're criminals. They simply shoot you if they don't like you. So anyway, let's go back to the Russians. Hillary had the Russian connection, and there was an analysis, and this is in the WikiLeaks. They said, what's Hillary's weakest point? Her connection to uranium-1. Even at that time, they realized through analysis that could take her down. Well, who was the architect of uranium-1? Who protected it? I'm sorry, who was the protector of uranium-1? Robert Mueller. And who was his Department of Justice connection at that time? James Comey. And who was the man on the street dealing with the Russians, personally, bringing the money, carrying the cash? Andrew McCabe. And the Clinton Foundation, $145 million, and the Clinton Juster Sustainability Growth Fund, $200 million. So there's the Russian connection.
Man, this makes the Sopranos look like choir boys.
Oh, this is the biggest mafia cartel
They're
syndicate.
just mafioso thugs.
Each presidential family since Jimmy Carter has basically been a syndicate, and it's using international forces and strength and muscle to come in and to act like Dracula and drain the blood of America. These are parasites.
I guess if it was when they figured out that they could do this in Chicago, why not take it nationally? And then, let's take it global, because it's a model that works for them.
Yes. Now let's go back to laughing at Mueller, because he's a joke now. He's a complete joke, and he's now committed a huge crime if he doesn't now bring to light the fact that the people who had access to the Democratic National Committee server, Hillary Clinton's server, 80 computers that were connected in the Congress because Pelosi ordered the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, all of them, to put their computers under the control of a Pakistani national who is now literally being investigated by a one junior FBI agent, being investigated for the largest espionage case in American history. Now, what's really most interesting, and we said all of this a long time ago, so this is repeat for some of you, I'm so sorry, but it catches you up to today. Do you think that when Mueller looked into the Russians hacking The server, first off, he never looked at the server. The FBI never looked at the server. Only CrowdStrike looked at the server. That's because George Soros's donations were on that server. The corrupt Clinton campaign funds were on that. The way she gathered the funds from the states and pulled them back to give to her. The way she stole from Bernie Sanders. And then Seth Rich, and this is the reason Seth Rich did this, he was first on one side of it and saw the corruption. Then he got on the, he was for Bernie. He was mad that they stole that they had the software to steal the election. And he became very aware of that. But then when he became aware of it and they realized that he was such a Bernieite, they moved him over to the campaign section of the computer. There's 2 different programs being used. I could go into all that. But the point is, he then became aware of the campaign financial fraud and that the U.S. Digital Service had created, in the previous program he was working on, these through Google and through Facebook and $1.5 billion from Eric Schmidt, who also then had $100 million connected to CrowdStrike, and that's why Eric Schmidt, do you think Eric Schmidt, who gave $1.5 billion in just one campaign, would not go look at that server himself if he thought that his cheating campaign funds had now been compromised, along with George Soros's, along with other foreign entities who donated to Hillary's campaign, as well as the fact that Hillary's campaign gave to Jill McCabe, which was a crime, because Andrew McCabe was investigating her. Also, on and on and on. I've always said that server will never come to light. It has been melted down with acid because what was on it would have ended the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party. So, remember, they also paid Fusion GPS as much as $12 million through Perkins Coie to come up with disinformation to say that it was who? It was the Russians hacking the DNC to release to WikiLeaks Hillary Clinton's emails and John Podesta's emails. Now, stop for a second. They're public servants. Their password was password. They were doing pay for play. Everyone was going in there. But then they want to say that because Seth Rich and another person carried a breach out of the Democratic National Committee's computer server, that's a bad thing, and that was Russia. So CrowdStrike, Dmitry Alperovitch came in, left the footprints of, was it Cozy Bear, Fancy Bear? Stupid. Those were old forms of that. A high schooler could have done a better job. But he's a pathetic creature himself, to be quite honest with you. If you ever get a chance to see an interview of his, you won't believe one word that comes out of his mouth. He cannot lie.
Speaking of which,
he's pathetic.
I just hope they get dude Zuckerberg up there in Congress to testify. I can't wait to see him sit in that seat for 7 hours. Oh,
he is a bigger idiot than Dmitry Alperovitch.
And he won't have his handlers there. And it would just take one senator who's read our reports on how they stole social media to ask dude Zuckerberg a few questions about his coding abilities.
Dude Zuckerberg never coded anything. We know that because he used the twins and 2 other people to write the code.
Or just ask him about his relationship to IBM Eclipse Foundation. Oh, a few things like that.
Well, he won't be able to give anything intelligible because he doesn't know. And he basically said that the other day, I don't really know. Yes, you all need to monitor me because I don't know what I am.
I know. And it's so sad.
How many times have I said he hasn't even been to work but one day out of a month?
Right.
And yet he runs one of the biggest companies in the world? Wrong. He makes money from ads? Wrong. Go up to the top corner, push the button. No ads. Hello. If you don't get any ads... Okay. By pushing a button, how do you make billions of dollars off of ads? No, you do exactly what everyone knows he does, which is sell every speck of information he has to everyone. Mm-hmm. That's what he does.
We're the product.
This was the pride of Facebook and Google. They used to brag about this. Now their top execs are coming out and saying, "Oh no. Facebook, no. Google, no. We gave the Democrats complete access to everything because we were on their side."
Yes, they say that.
And then they want to take dude Zuckerberg to the Congress? That's where the kangaroo court entertainment happens.
He won't be able to handle it, Thomas.
No, it'll be
He's such
funny.
a soy boy. Hey, let's
Dmitry
get back to...
Alperovitch was
Yes,
not
go
called
back.
by Mueller.
Okay.
Okay, the man and the only man allowed to look at the DNC server was not called by Mueller, though he was investigating the Russian hacking of the DNC. Mueller did not get, say, a copy of the contents of the DNC server. Nothing. He never went near it. But this is the big deal. But first, let me finish this. Comey got involved from the beginning, and they realized they had to create a fake story that would push all Russian stuff back on Trump to try to disguise it, so when Hillary is accused, she turns around and says, no, I'm rubber and you're glue. What you call me bounces off me and sticks to you. And that's all she ever said in her whole election. And she never said anything but that. She didn't even have a platform. But anyway, the platform was from July on, when the Papadopoulos counterintelligence investigation started with John Brennan, went to then William Priestap and Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, the whole group, Comey, McCabe. When that happened, that's when they say, just a little bit before that, Dmitry Alperovitch finally came in, though we know by WikiLeaks that the breach happened almost a year before that, and that they started planning their Russian narrative to dump on Trump in December, and we have it in their emails, which are totally ignored by everyone. I don't know why, that we are the only people saying this. But anyway, then what did Comey do? Then he set up the Carter Page dossier. He got Felix Sater involved. He got Carter Page involved. He got Sergei Milikin Pachenko involved. He got 2 other Russians involved. So the Russians were just thick as thieves. He got, what's her name? Alexei, let's see if I can get her name, Kesselnikaya involved. He brought over, the State Department allowed criminal Russian spies to come over to meet with the Trump team that they set up to try to entrap them. So you want to talk about Russians? How about the Russians that Andrew McCabe and Hillary protected in the Uranium One deal? Anyway, don't get me started on the Russians. Now, then what happened next? This is beautiful. In the dossier, it says who the Russian hacker of the DNC was. His name was Alexei Gubarev. He's mentioned in the dossier. He's the head of a thing called Webzilla, one of the richest cyber Russian dudes in the world. They figured he wouldn't do anything because the dossier was never supposed to be made public. Remember, Bruce Orr working with the Department of Justice, Glenn Simpson working with GPS, Fusion GPS, and Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr's wife, working with Sidney Blumenthal, working with the John Podesta, working with Hillary Clinton and their versions coming out of the DNC. All of that was really the continuing plot that goes on now. And so when you look at that, you have to see that Comey set up one Russian connection after the next. Franklin Forer and the Trump Tower servers. On and on. Don't even get me started. There's no end to this. There is no end to the people connected to Hillary that were connected to the dossier, connected to the fake intelligence, connected to what was the attempt to knock Trump out of the election, attempt to overthrow him as president-elect, and an attempt right now, a coup d'etat.
But she still lost.
And she still lost.
I tell you, talk about the world's biggest loser.
And
my
as
God.
Michael McKibben pointed out, Shalevko, whatever his name is, the Russian that was hired by Eric Schmidt himself to write a new template for the algorithms, both in Facebook advertising and all of Facebook and all of social media. And don't mind you, it's not Google and Facebook, it's all of them.
Yeah.
Peter Thiel,
Yeah.
it's Twitter, it's all of them.
It's LinkedIn. It's any place you go where you use a login.
They are selling every speck of data they get from you so it can be mined. And who is it mined by? Commercial interests that are trying to sell you stuff. But who is it actually created by and actually mined by? That is kept in your dark profile, which now you can go onto Facebook and pull up your dark profile, which they sell to people for $3.70.
That's all I'm worth?
To each advertiser, to each commercial interest, they pay $3.54 or
okay.
$3.50 for your entire profile. And we've been telling you this from the beginning it existed. We told you Eric Schmidt created it. We told you it went to Facebook because Eric Schmidt's always been behind Facebook. He put in $100 million before it went public. It turned into $100 billion for him.
So when Facebook stocks tumble, it's going to bring them all down. All these FANG stocks, which are your Facebook and Apple and Netflix, Google. There's another A in there too.
It's going to have to crumble or be brought to the light. But I want to point out something else to you. Michael McKibben's going to correct me on that because Eric Schmidt, it probably wasn't exactly 100 million. Could have been 400 million. At least 100 million. And then it became a huge amount. And he even broke the law so he could get his money out immediately so that then he could dump it into, of course, YouTube, Gmail, all these different elaborations of the scalability of social networking, which was invented by Leader Technology and stolen by the Patent Office. David Kudos and
James
Chandler and
whole,
Mueller
yeah.
and Rosenstein and Comey, guys.
Even Roberts, the Supreme Court Justice,
These same criminals.
Facebook stock.
So it's all going to go down because they have to hide what's actually happening. Here's what's actually happening. I told you this was going to happen. Dan Coates had to give his plan how to stop all surveillance in America. The time is up. He was given 30 days. Trump must have accepted the plan because he didn't make it public. He never makes his real strategies public. Facebook is going down because Trump is taking them down. And because we have been helping in every way we can to give his administration all the indictable evidence to show him so that he will simply let his company die. But remember, it is we who are on Facebook can get off, he will die tomorrow. It is we who are on Amazon. If we stop ordering, it dies tomorrow. That's the way that works. Those are monopolies supported by the government, by our taxes. Don't forget that. Now, going back, Comey was so desperate that they named Alexei Gubarev. Gubarev is now suing Christopher Steele, who created the fake dossier with the help of the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. Don't make me name them all again. Christopher Steele is a foreign agent. That is illegal. We have said he must be arrested immediately, and then all of his conspirators can drop like dominoes. But what did Comey do next? He wasn't satisfied that he hired Franklin Foer to make that stuff up. He wasn't satisfied that he paid Sergei Millian to search Europe for a video, supposedly, allegedly, of Donald Trump in a room with prostitutes doing horrible things. I've seen the video. It ain't Donald Trump. You know how many millions of dollars the CIA and Comey paid to get that tape? Unbelievable. But then again, remember, Mueller makes $3.4 million at WilmerHale, the crooked law firm he and 7 of his people came from to the Mueller investigation. They get to charge $100 million a year because they're all SES members. And I don't know that I'll ever do another tape that I don't mention SES.
Senior Executive Services.
The shadow government must be taken down. Pay them $1 through the Holman Clause. They will all cry and leave because they're lawyers.
That's the Council of 500.
Council of 500 are all lawyers.
That's the SES people over there at the DOJ that are really the overseers of this whole SES swamp.
So, what did they do in Washington, D.C. when Christopher Steele got sued here and Fusion GPS got sued here by Alexei Gubarev and the 3 oligarchs that are mentioned connected to Alpha Bank that was supposedly sending Trump money through Franklin Foer's imaginary Comey paid for Trump Tower server? Now there's 4 lawsuits both in America and in England against Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS, also other lawsuits against Yahoo News, other lawsuits now against CNN. These lawsuits are the deciding factor because then the people tell somewhat of the truth when they give their depositions. And by the actions of the court, that's where we get most of this information, not from our intelligence community that are filled with liars at the top when there was the Obama administration. So Comey went out and got Christopher Steele to state Alexei Gubarev was the Russian hacker of the DNC. Aha. Well, it wasn't supposed to be revealed, but when Orr and Steele and Glenn Simpson and FBI representatives met with Washington Post, CNN, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Mother Jones, Yahoo News, and then later BuzzFeed was given a copy by somebody. I suggest that came directly from John McCain, which means he needs to go to jail too. He's part of the
He's
conspiracy.
Yeah.
I don't care what his health is. It doesn't matter. People die in jail. It's no problem. They'll take care of him.
That's the way it is.
God bless him. But anyway, so he went out, and what did he do? He searched the world over. He went to Kim.com and said, hey, if you say you were doing this for the Russian and you hacked the DNC, we will drop our charges against you. Kim.com told the world. He got busted. They went there twice. The FBI. He has records. He has copies. He has video. They made him a deal. Complete exoneration from the crimes that we are holding against you, which he didn't do, by the way, if you say you are the Russian hacker. And he told them to jump in a lake, that he was part of it wasn't a Russian hacking, it was a breach, and he helped with it with Seth Rich. He's now come to Mueller and said, I will testify and give you proof that Seth Rich created the breach. There was no hacking. You can't be hacked at 23 megabytes a second. Not possible. At the rate that it was breached. Sorry, I don't want to say something technically wrong. So Kim.com is now out, and he's talking about what? The SES. And what is he saying? He's saying the Highland Forum is also the group that created, Facebook, PayPal, the whole thing.
Which we have been reporting on for quite a while. But that's okay. People will all catch up to truth as they will.
We reported these things. I already said, the second that Mueller took this job, that in the end, if he got so low and dirty and pathetic, he would blame it on Guccifer 2.0. Now, you're all sitting there going, okay, who is Guccifer 2.0?
Yes,
I'm not there yet. Okay, so then Comey goes out, and he goes after one person in jail after the next who's a hacker and makes them deals. The biggest one that hit the news in the Czech Republic is a guy named Yevgeny Nikulin. Yevgeny Nikulin. They went there twice. The FBI signed in. They have films of this. It went out on the Czech news because Yevgeny said, hey, you won't believe who came and offered me a complete deal of getting out of hacking LinkedIn and Dropbox and a bunch of other things that he was arrested for. By the way, they were looking for him, and only when the U.S. got involved did they capture him in the very city that they say that Michael Cohen in the dossier, who is Trump's lawyer, went to Prague to do the deal with the money between Putin and him. That's the same city they arrested Yevgeny Nikulin. Isn't that a coincidence? So it would fit their story. Oh, Ed, lo and behold, he's a Romanian. The first Guccifer 1.0 was a Romanian, so they call him a Russian. This one's a Romanian, so they call him a Russian. So that guy, Guccifer 1.0, is still in jail. He didn't do it. This guy didn't do it. He admitted he didn't do it. He had nothing to do with it. He was on the run. And they finally catch him. And then the FBI goes there and they make him this deal in the city where they say the deals were made between Trump and Putin through his lawyer, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen comes out and says, here's my passport. Look at all the pages. I've never been to Prague. What are you talking about? I've never been to the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, or anything like that. You're all crazy with your dossier accusations, right? So Comey gets caught again, trying to find yet another person, because when the dossier came out, and Alexei Gubarev found out, he had to have his backup. Yevgeny was his backup. Yevgeny busted him. Kim.com afterwards busted him. Same thing. He was out there willing to give people the witness protection program, completely exonerate them, and by the story, 2 or 3 credit cards, unlimited for the rest of your life. And we won't ever ask you another question. Do what you want. That's what they offered to at least 2 people who reported that, okay? So that's how desperate Comey personally was to find a Russian hacker of the DNC. There was no hacker. There was Dmitry Alperovich. He put the stuff in there in December. He came back in the spring, said it was there, said then, now this is the great part, and this is where we get Mueller. And then they say, by one other fact I have to have here, the same exact tech person who ran Hillary's espionage server, ran the DNC server. He was overthrown when Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, after Imran Awan was brought in after being accused of espionage and mortgage fraud, and 4 of the 5 people in his Pakistani national team left the country. The FBI let them leave. The CIA won't pick them up. He is now still not charged with anything. Okay? He had full access to the DNC server, to Hillary's server, and that's how he got access to John Podesta's emails. Why can no one answer this but us? He also had access because Pelosi ordered 80 congresspeople, the most corrupt ones that, don't get me started on naming them or I will name them, and they are the ones all attacking Trump. And they also have sex crimes that they have paid off with that committee, the ethics committee, that has paid off $17 million in congressional people sexually attacking others. And instead of going to court, they simply pay them off, like Al Green, $750,000 for his last attack. Okay. Gregory Meeks, $250,000 for his last attack. They're going to keep this up. These are the people trying to impeach Trump because he had sex supposedly with somebody 20 years ago. Okay? So
I knew you were going to go out so far. You wouldn't know.
Comey
never
investigated Imran Awan, now did he?
No.
But we know for a fact that Imran Awan had access to not only those things I mentioned, but also the Blackberries, the iPads, and the computers. And Debbie Wasserman-Schultz's own computer, she fought with the Capitol Hill police and threatened them to get it back because it was in the hands of Imran Awan. That is the evidence you need to take the whole thing down. When the FBI can be honest enough to give up Seth Rich's computer, Huma Abedin's computer, Imran Awan's computer, which Comey had all of those, you will have the story I'm telling you, and also get the financial records of Fusion GPS. You'll have the whole story.
But anyway, this is why I tell people all the time that this is an information war. All these computers have information, and they want to try to keep it from us, and we're trying to get it.
Mark my words. Thomas Paine in The Ass of the Globalist. Nobody else says this. Look where you will find no one who will tell you this and give you the full story. Now, I'm going to finish the story. Here's the story. Yes, Imran Awan was completely capturing every bit of data he could and running it through that California Democrat's name, Bersara, who now is no longer in Congress. His server in his office, he didn't even think was on. It was the proxy server gathering all this information, running it through his office, and running it to another proxy server off-site, which was then going international, we know that, which was probably going to Pakistan and every other country that paid him. So when I'm saying pay for play, the pay for play was he had access to Hillary's computer and everything she said and did on her BlackBerry, on everything. He had access to the DNC. There was no hacking. He created the second breach, probably, Imran Awan. So then we need to find out who Guccifer 2.0 is. So when they found this out, do you think they could reveal it? Why do you think they haven't revealed it to this point? Pelosi knows. Andre Carson, you want to look at the criminals? Gregory Meeks, Andre Carson, Nancy Pelosi knew all of this. Debbie Wasserman-Schultz knew all of this. They still know it. They're still protecting it. They will scream Armageddon over giving a tax break to make sure that no attention is paid to this. Now, here is the sad, sad state of affairs in Washington, D.C. with the Mueller investigation, and it is this. When Dmitry Alperovitch came in, he put on his proprietary supposed virus protection called Falcon onto the DNC server, and over the phone, in 10 seconds, he says, he knew it was Russians.
He was amazing.
And before he even went there, he was 100%, 200% sure that Vladimir Putin personally directed this.
Yes.
Now go and look at his interviews. He goes insane just like I just went.
Uh-huh.
Because why? He had to leave his mother Russia with his dad, their spies. They had to come here and make their way by the stolen crypto codes they brought here from the nuclear industry, lie about everything, go to jail, be arrested by the FBI, have to work for us stupid Americans, have to take over all of our industries because we're all too stupid to understand that who owns the crypto keys owns everything, and who owns the cyber company that checks into cyber warfare attacks owns everything, and that would be Michael Alperovitch and his son Dmitry Alperovitch, the criminal who was Mueller's expert cyber warfare stooge, who whenever they needed one, same thing with Comey, same thing with the White House, Obama particularly, they use him. Complete nonsense. Ex-counterintelligence people work in his company. They're not even good hackers. He was a good hacker, but he was a criminal hacker. So he was very good at hacking and leaving bad footprints. He had some of the most successful hacks in America, and that's the reason the stupid FBI was even able to find him. But to say Mueller can find an IP address of a computer and knows the street that it's on shows he doesn't know how to turn on a computer. So to say that he knows that Guccifer 2.0 is a Russian officer in the GRU, I got to scoop back because the stupidity here, the ignorance is beyond astounding. It's beyond believable. And no one could believe this. So Mueller says he now, though there have been, let's see, there was the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, 17 intelligence community investigation into Russian collusion and Russian meddling, which came out in December of 2016 before the election, and said that the only thing they could find was RT and Sputnik. Read it. It's public. Then there was another one, and they said the only thing they could find is nothing. And that's the reason Clapper, Brennan, and Comey all disagree on what they say is the outcome. Just look at their testimony. They all disagree. None of them agree. There weren't 17 intelligence communities. There was 4, and one of them says they don't agree with any of the reports, and he made up his own report, and that was Clapper, and he said there was no collusion. And then the other ones he said he didn't agree with, and they say there was collusion, but the stupid collusion has now been proven false. There was no 21 states that had Russian hacking. That was phishing to people who worked at voting facilities, and they were the ones who, these were open lines. These didn't reach anywhere. There was no hacking. There was no proof of any hacking anywhere. Of the DNC, no. Of our election, no such thing. And to say that then to say the IRA, these 13 Russian agents hacked for the election, they didn't even work there anymore. That's a fact. We know that for a fact. The guy came out and did a second report. The guy who did the expose back in 2014 did a report and said none of those people worked there. He's been all over the news. Just listen to him. He says those people don't work there anymore. I know them. Not one of them was any part of the 2000 election. As we pointed out, those things weren't paid for by Russians. That's a lie. Zuckerberg was just reading a cue card. They were done by the Global Engagement Center of the Department of Defense for the Board of Broadcasting Governors. And they admitted it because the bosses there and the 3 head guys came out and said they did this. They bragged about it in Facebook. They bragged about it in Google. So the Russians, yes, thick as thieves with Trump, no. Was there any Russian hacking? Absolutely not. There was Pakistani hacking. There was a Russian who's become an American, Dmitry Alperovitch. He didn't hack. He placed the footprints. And what we now need to point out is the following. When Mueller investigated this, he had to investigate the Russian hacking. As a matter of fact, it has been leaked that he says he knows there was Russian hacking. As a matter of fact, the echo chamber causes these intelligence people and the idiots in the mainstream media to repeat, there was Russian hacking. No, there was not Russian hacking. There was never been any proof of that. Look at Dmitry Alperovich's report. It's complete nonsense. It's been debunked unbelievably. There's not a word in it that's true. And he's been debunked. That's the reason he's so quiet. Why don't they investigate him? Anyway, so the Pakistanis had a full open line going out of this country from the DNC, from the Democratic National Committee server, from Hillary's server, from Podesta's emails, from Hillary's emails, Hillary's Blackberries, and the 80 members of Congress and others. I'm not going to get into all that. That was flowing out of this country. So when Mueller investigated this, all he had to do was ask the FBI agent in charge of the Imran Awan espionage, and he would have learned all of this. All he has to do is read the newspaper. He has to avoid this, not to know this. Read the news. So he didn't do an investigation. He did a cover-up. And because he did a cover-up and he knew the facts because they would have come out in the cover-up because he had to find all the documents and cover them up, he is now complicit with the largest espionage ring in U.S. history. He is now an enemy of the state, and his investigation is an attack because when these crimes are realized, the people must be prosecuted. They must be investigated. None of them have been investigated. Has Yevgeny Nuklin been brought from Prague? No. Don't get me started on all the people that have been covered up, and Mueller covered this up. That means Mueller 100% absolutely is complicit in the crimes of espionage, in the true death of Seth Rich and the cover-up, along with Comey. Comey is directly responsible for the cover-up and the death of Seth Rich because they knew it was a breach. These are all recorded events. I'm not making this up. We know exactly these things because of the testimony of the people involved. I told Mueller from the beginning, if he didn't end in Thanksgiving, it was going to take him down. And now he has done that. He won't end. He's too stupid. He has just made him and all 17 lawyers who are part of this case, who ever received a briefing on it, because the crime they're looking for is the crime they're covering up and the crime they committed. And it is illegal that they exist to begin with, and their $100 million a year that they have to play this game to try to find a crime is not legal. And now Joe DiGenova knows that. He knows that. And he's saying this is a crime. Yes, it's a crime. Trump didn't commit a crime. Therefore, your entire investigation is illegal. You committed the crime of trying to frame him. So they're going to just use the legal angle instead of the conspiracy angle and the espionage angle and the foreign agent angle and the enemy of the state angle that I have now outlined for you. I am so tired of being the only person in alt news that points this out. Even George Webb. George, listen to this broadcast. Listen to what we're telling you about SES. You've been listening to that very carefully, but listen to the full story. Go to our dumps of 33,000 documents. Help us put these people in jail. Go through Serco. That is an attack on the United States government and the Republic because Serco is a foreign agent, and they even control our uranium along with Putin. This is a foreign attack against our government, and only because the Senior Executive Service controls all 75 agencies that the federal government controls could this happen. And only because Hillary Clinton did what she did, and because she paid for that Fusion GPS piece of Russian garbage nonsense out of the Ukraine and Russia and England and all over the place. Let's remember this came out of Maltese, out of Italy. This isn't just Russians. This is a conspiracy beyond any conspiracy in U.S. history. And that Mueller has not even interviewed these people. And because he's not going to. And if he doesn't, he is 100% complicit in the crime of espionage and for basically picking up the lead where Comey left off when he was fired to lead the coup d'etat against Donald Trump.